And we continue on with our breaking down of this pick six sequence here. We are in leg two, talking to Kentucky Oaks with you can see the little band down here going, a little shout out, keep pounding. Our friend. Oh, there. Wait, was that a dog or was that like?
Yeah, it's a dog. It's funny.
Oh,
She's actually pretty small, but she scares the crap out of people. Like she sounds like a huge scary dog, and then they see her, and it's like this little tiny thing comes
I
around.
I couldn't tell if it was like a panther's like roar that you had like queued up. I was like,
Well,
oh man,
I was
he's.
gonna give you credit for that. You're the production guy here.
But yep, Stu, keep pounding here. Uh, I'm glad to have you talk through this race, and unfortunately, it seems like I gave you probably one of the harder races in the sequence.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. I think this is pretty wide open. I think if you're looking at it from a horizontal standpoint, I'd say it's a spread race.
Yeah, so and we were kind of just talking a little bit before the stream, and I was kind of like, really the only horse that I don't really know what to do with, or a horse that I don't think has really a shot in this might be the UAE shipper, but with a lot of these other horses, like I'm not going to be surprised if any of these horses, kind of win. So maybe we'll just kind of go through it, top to bottom, talk about each horse real quickly, and then maybe one of us will form an opinion on this race.
Yeah, we
But
can kind of help each other get to the answer here. Yeah, no, I feel the same way. I think it's pretty wide open. A lot of the horses look similar too, so you have to kind of look closely to try to see if you can separate them.
yeah, I mean, do you have any interest in this one horse coming from
Yeah, I
UAE?
mean, not really. On one hand, it's like, well, if it's a spread race, that would really be a lot of value, right, to use that horse. But I mean, there's not a ton of evidence, unfortunately, but everything that I do see, like the figures that are available, time form, the sheets, they all have it kind of slow. Seems like the clockers say that the horse isn't looking that great, so it doesn't seem like there's a lot of evidence that you'd want to use the horse. Again, not super confident in the race, but it does seem like that's one you're probably safe leaving off.
Yeah, I mean, like the only interesting thing to me is that Michaela Barcelona, is coming across to ride this horse. But
Yeah, he likes
yeah,
to send, right? Is he? I don't really know
yeah,
if
I
he's
think he's more on
capable of
the
it, but
aggressive side. But I thought he's always solid in those Middle Eastern meets. So I think he used to ride in the UK or something. He rode at a bigger circuit, and then he took the Middle Eastern money there, and he's just living it up there. Um, one of the Brad Cox horses here, the Alley's Look. I was really high on this horse in the Fairground Oaks, and kind of just ran very disappointing. Um, kind of was just empty, I think, in that race. So
yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, it really didn't finish at all. Kind of makes you question that figure two back. I know Chop Chop didn't return to do much, so if you're saying that that figure is maybe 10 points high, then everything looks in kind of the low 80s, and that kind of fits, right?
yep, yeah, this is just like another one of those horses that probably just didn't take that step forward from 2 to 3.
Yeah, it
Um,
also seems like Saez wasn't really interested in sticking around. That's I don't play the jock game too much, but you would think if he thought that there was an excuse last race, he might stick
Gambling Girl, I think, is a horse I'm actually a little bit interested in this spot. I think the price is going to be right. I think it's not all the time you get big name connections at this kind of price, and if you look at that last race, did drift out a bit, and missed by a half length there in the Gazelle. I'm not really high on the winner from that race, so I think this is kind of the horse that I would want out of that race, and I think you're getting a pretty good price here, especially if the figures to be believed it took that big step forward that last time out.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really disagree. I think she was probably best in there. Didn't get a ton of pace, came running, just missed. To your point, had some trouble in the stretch. If she does win, you're probably right. This is an overlay, right? Morning line's 15-1. She's probably more like 8-10. Um, I don't love the horse. I guess my issue is I think the value in this race to me is trying to beat wet paint, not trying to skip ahead. But this version or this horse seems kind of like a little slightly lesser version of
Yeah.
wet paint. I think if the horse or if the race ends up setting up for this horse, then you're probably looking at a race that might suit wet paint. So I was going to try to play horses more on the front end, but I hear what you're saying from a value standpoint.
Yeah, and like just talking about the pace, I got the optics plot here pulled up. Shout out to Emily Optics out there. But oh, shout out to the dog as well.
She loves the
Um,
play.
it's it's kind of been just a theme I've seen with some of these races that just like the plots are just an absolute mess. And it's really gonna. I think if you can get a good handle on the pace for some of these stakes races, that you'll be able to make a little bit of money here. Yeah, I mean, it thinks that maybe the 10 horse kind of gets out there on the lead here, but it does seem that a lot of the horses are going to be forwardly placed, especially if the one decides to get really aggressive. Obviously they don't have the one plotted here, but if the one gets aggressive, this might set up for a horse like like the three gambling girl, which is kind of where I was looking. Obviously seven is wet paint. Who is the favorite here, and I just don't know. Maybe the horse might leave herself too much to do in the spot. It could be, but that was just kind of you know taking a look at the early optics plots. Obviously, if we get a couple of scratches, the 16, 17 are in here as well. So those horses scratching out is going to affect the plot a little bit, but um, I don't know. I don't know if you're a big optics guy, Stu, but
Yeah, I
what do you
like to
say about
reference
that?
it. I mean, I think it's a good reference for pace for sure. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the way you beat Wet Paint is to get the jump on her for sure. She's been dead last in every single one of her dirt races, so I wouldn't really expect that to change here. Irad knows that, so he might be a little more forward on Gambling Girl than I was giving him credit for.
Yeah. Another horse I like, probably the horse I like second most in the spot is South Lawn here for Norm Cassie. Obviously won the Fairgrounds Oaks. And I'm having a hard time with some of these fairground horses just because the tracks seem to play so weird, both on the dirt and turf this winter compared to normal. So I don't really know what to make of that Fairground Oaks effort. But if you go back to the optional claimer, I thought that the horse kind of shows a little bit of versatility, is able to be, not afraid to take the lead, or can sit just off. So I think I think is definitely going to be more of a forwardly placed horse than some of these closers, especially like a horse like Wet Paint. I think this is a horse that will definitely get to jump on Wet Paint here.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's pretty tactical. So Riley has kind of his choice to do what he needs to do. Um, so the story with this horse, right? It had throat surgery or something at the end of the year. So undefeated since then. The replays are pretty nice. I mean, it's hard to argue with that Oaks race that she was best. I agree. I've been kind of struggling with the fairgrounds horses. I didn't like a lot of them at Keeneland, and I got burned a lot of the times. It seems like they were outrunning kind of their form. So I think it's a live horse for sure. I mean, it seems like there's you kind of have to break down this race from the different preps, right? Like the fairgrounds races versus we just talked a little bit about Aqueduct, versus the Keeneland race versus Florida. It seems like this could be one of the stronger groups, and I mean she won pretty dominantly last time. So with that, the ability, like we said, to be tactical and sit where you need her, then I don't know. I think she makes sense as a use. I agree.
And historically, I think the Fairground Oaks is the um, most productive of the preps. So, I mean, history. Talk about the Derby later, right? And I'm all over a horse that's never won from a race that's in the post that's never won. So, and the favorite is got a jock who's never won. So who knows what's going on there, but um, history on South Lawn's side a little bit. The five, the Wonder Horse from last year, Wonder Wheel. I mean, isn't this just the poster child of horse that didn't improve at 3?
Yeah, no, I agree. You can put that in the dictionary, the horse racing dictionary beside that description. I mean, it's repeating the same figures the last what 3 or 4 races. Didn't move forward at all. Seems like everyone else progressed. I was a little disappointed in the morning line. I think all the seasoned horse players were hoping that this this horse would take some of the recreational money here. And maybe it still will, being the 2-year-old champion, but yeah, not for me for sure.
Yeah, that's toss for me as well. Botanical. I know a certain horse player who loves this horse. But yeah, coming out of the Turfway Park prep, and those Turfway Park horses have been firing. They were firing at Keeneland. They were firing, I think, to start at Churchill. So, um, what do you think? This is the first time dirt for Botanical at 4-1 on the morning line. I think um, it seems a little short to take a price on a horse doing something for the first time, but I definitely think there's some ability there.
Yeah, no, I agree for sure. I mean, I was joking with a buddy earlier, but it's like if I was calling wet paint the worst bet in racing, right? That favorite short price dirt closer. Well, the second worst bet might be short price trying something new, like you said, new surface. But all the evidence seems to be that the horse is handling the dirt well. I mean, you don't really know until they race, but the works look good. The works are fast. Cox seems confident. And to your point, the Turfway horses at Keeneland, they transferred their form to dirt really well. It is horse by horse, obviously. The breeding has a lot to do with it, but the breeding here suggests that she should be fine. Um, so I think she's a use. I mean, the figures are fast. I want a horse to be more forward. I think she will be. And she finished all of those races really strongly. So I'm definitely using Botanical.
Yep. And then obviously we move on to wet paint. I think this is a horse I'm just trying to beat in this spot. Um, I, Oak Lawn is always a funny track. I always feel like Oak Lawn form doesn't travel really well, but I mean maybe I'm just being biased because I never do well there, and I just hate it. But I don't know. Like this horse closed at Oak Lawn, which I think it's just a different track than Churchill. But the horse has got 3 wins coming in here. Has won on fast, wet, fast, sloppy, um, and Pratt sees fit to stay on here and ride again. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on wet paint?
Yeah, I mean, she's probably the horse to beat on paper. Like I said, I just don't think there's value taking that short of a price on a closer that coming from last that really doesn't have a figure edge on any of these horses. You did mention the off track. I mean, they're calling. It sounds like there could be some weather on Friday, so it might be something to watch. She definitely handles it well. She might even move her up based on her past performances. But I mean, 14 horses. She's been a couple of those were big field, but a couple of them were small too. You have to get lucky when you're coming from last. You can get stopped, right? You need a trip. A few times she closed inside also, which I mean that's the best trip if you can get it, but that's also pretty risky of getting shut off. So I don't think she's any value in here. I think a lot of people are going to single this horse because I think her reputation is probably more than her form deserves. So I'm with you. I'm trying to beat her.
Promise Her America didn't go to the wedding, don't go to the funeral.
Yeah, no, not for me. That was a pretty easy pace last time, and she was kind of holding on for dear life against Gambling Girl.
Yeah, I think Vargas gave a great ride, and the horse got a great trip. I just don't see that trip happening in this race. So, um, and Tell Me No Lies. Second place finisher in a bunch of the West Coast preps. Is this the only West Coast? Well, I guess technically the 10 horse is kind of West Coast if you count Sunland and Zia Park, but or at least
Yeah,
West.
no, I mean to me, she's also she's probably 1B behind Wonder Wheel of the horse that didn't progress it to you. She's run the same figures 5 times in a row, right, within a few points. Um, I kind of like her run style on here because she might be able to sit more mid pack and try to get the jump, but I don't think she's fast enough.
Yeah, and like the only time that she had more than like 5 horses in the field, or it was actually 7 horses in the field, didn't seem to be able to find any way through. So
No, she's one
um,
of those horses that like if you watch the replays, you can find a lot of troubled trips. Um, After you do that 5 times in a row, you got to start start blaming the horse.
Yeah, no, that's I think it was another video I was talking about, you know, because people were talking about a horse like Practical Move that seems to always get a perfect trip. I'm like, look, like if it happens 3 times in a row, 2 times, more than 2 times, like maybe it's just the horse, and it's the same thing like a horse like Tacitus, right? Everyone kept on betting that horse based off of trouble, but after the horse didn't want to get out of the gate 3 times in a row, like you would think you'd learn, you know, hey, just because he's coming late doesn't mean he's going to get there. Um, but you know, the other horse, I mean, I'm a little bit interested in this 10 Flying Connection just because this is absolutely the one horse that I think has only got one option, and it's to go. I am kind of confused when I look at the rider for this horse, especially since Brad Cox has got a couple in here, and I saw Chris Landeros riding one. So, and I know Chris Landeros has ridden the horse before, but interesting that Flo gets aboard here on Flying Connection. Um, I mean, you're hoping and praying that Sunland form crosses over, but I think you might get a price to you know on who should be the speed in this race.
Yeah, no, I think you'll definitely get the price, just like you said, because of Sunland, because of Zia Park. Nobody's gonna really respect that, or at least the casual horse player would not. I think the figures are legitimate. I tried to do my charting work and go through and compare any of the run backs and see some of the horses actually that ran back at Saint Anita. I think it's legit. I think she's going to be on the lead, and if you bet her, you'll at least get get a bit of a thrill. See how far she can take you. I don't think the pace is going to be as fast as some do. I think she'll be in front for sure, but I think like probably Botanical and Dorth Vader, who we're going to get to after this, they'll be stalking, but I don't think it'll be too pressured of a pace. So I'm interested in this horse also. I think it would really blow up a wager like a 2 day pick six.
Yeah, and then we get to I think the horse that's probably my top pick right now is Defining Purpose here, winner of the Ashland. It was a bit of a kind of jump forward, um, but you know I'm going to kind of excuse the two races at Oak Lawn where it came up wet, but you know it cross traffic on top tends to handle mud very really well. It seems like Strong Hope is not as big of a mud influence on the bottom. So you know, maybe with the weather coming in, maybe I'm a little less high on Defining Purpose than I was before. But um, I, I, I mean, I really think that you know this horse beat some pretty nice horses. I thought in the Ashland, you know, in Julia Shining and who else was in that race?
It's
Why
a
am I
punch
blanking?
bowl.
Oh, Punch Bowl. And yeah, I mean, I think it is just going to get that. It's got the run style. I think that I'd like to see here. You know, if the 10 isn't going to wire, you're going to want a horse. I think that's in that second or third flight, and I think that's exactly the kind of trip that Defining Purpose is going to get.
Yeah, this horse was kind of throwing me for for a loop, to be honest. I agree. I think the last race was really strong. It's kind of the run style I was envisioning winning this too, right? Like get in front, hit the lead at the top of the stretch, and then hold off the the other horses. Punch Bowl and Julia Shining were kind of coming for her last time, but the wire saved her. Um, I agree with your point about the weather. I think that's something to keep in mind. Those two off track performances at Oaklawn weren't the best. Wet paint handled her pretty well in those races, so I think that is something to keep an eye on. But you're right. I mean, the last 2 times she caught a dry track, she won, and she won back at Oaklawn before that, pretty impressively there also. So the horse does seem to have talent. Um, I'm pretty interested in using her. I'm wondering how the betting is going to go in this race. There's several horses in that like 10 to 15 to 1 range, and I think some of them could change. You know, some of them could go up, some of them could be cut in half. I think you'll probably get the 12 to 1 on this horse though, and I think that's a reasonable bet.
12 horse Dorth Vader. I have no idea what to do with this horse. That Devona Dale was such a nice win. I mean horse won at 46 to 1, like the horse should have been 2 to 5. And then came back in the Gulfstream Oaks and kind of threw a bit of a clunker. I mean, which is the real horse, right? Is it the one from the Devona Dale? Is it the Gulfstream Oaks? I'm not really entirely sure, but Luis Saez gets aboard, and no insult to Mr. Vasquez, but it's about as about as good as it gets in Kentucky with Luis Saez. So um, definitely interested in using this horse.
Yeah, I am too. I'll admit I kind of have a thing for Darth Vader. I did use her in the Devona Dale. So that led to a good day for me. So I want her to be a good horse. I wanted her to compete in the Oaks here. I agree. The last race was confusing. I mean, you said she looked like a 2 to 5 in the Devona Dale. Well, I would have probably bet her a 2 to 5 going into the stretch in the Gulfstream Oaks. She was, I mean, they didn't, Vasquez hadn't asked her at all. She just cruised up on the outside to the lead and then was just totally empty. She didn't change leads till late, but she was already, I think, in third at that point. And I think the common perception with this horse will be she just can't get the distance. If you watch that replay, that's what it screams. But I am kind of curious if that's true. If you look too back at Tampa, she threw in a clunker also, so she's got a pretty significant like every other pattern going.
Hmm.
I don't know if it's just something with being lightly raced or just only being a 3-year-old filly that maybe she just isn't always locked in sometimes. You see that with the fillies. I mean, she ran too well in the Devona Dale for the extra 16th of a mile last time to make that big of a difference because they weren't equivalent efforts up to the mile. So I agree. I think Saez is a huge get for her. If she can stalk that 10 and she's having a good day, then she could blow up the toe board again. I mean, I'm definitely going to use her.
Yeah, and I think. Oh, I don't know. I had a thought there. Oh, looking at the works, has stayed at Gulfstream hasn't come up to work over at Churchill, but just working like an absolute monster. So I mean, 59, 59 and 1, 58 and 1. So those are some serious works. So I think Michael Yates has got this horse cranked. So if the horse is good enough, I think definitely can blow the tote board up.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think we should keep an eye on her. If she can't get the distance on Friday, then when she does cut back, we need to. That's where we'll make our money back.
Yep, unload. 13, Affirmative Lady here, was the winner of the Gulfstream Oaks. But I don't know, the figure came back not great on Brisnet. I haven't looked at other products yet, and maybe you have. Did that race just kind of come back slow?
Yeah, it did. It's a little light on all figures that I've seen. Um, about 10 points light from what I'm seeing. I didn't like the race at all. It's kind of funny that I think Dorth could improve, but if you're treating it more as a toss race for Dorth, then that affirmative lady just kind of inherited that win. Saez was on her. He was all out on the turn, like he does, and just kept bumping away. And the horse eventually just was the only one keep going. But the pace lines were actually a down line, so she wasn't getting faster. I think she was just the only one in the race that kept running. I think she'll probably be towards the back here and pass half the field that's tired, but I don't think she has any chance to win really.
Yeah, I'm not interested. Pretty mischievous. Horse coming in with some really nice form. Hasn't finished worse than third in any of her starts. And ended up finishing second at a pretty short price at the Fairground Oaks to South Lawn. She looked like she might win, and then South Lawn just kind of just blew past her. So, any interest in Pretty Mischievous?
So I think she's going to get bet pretty hard. I mentioned there's kind of those horses grouped there in the mid range. I think from what I've heard this week, like she's kind of a buzzworks horse. Everybody thinks she looks really good. I mean, she went off 6 to 5 in the Fairground Oaks last time, so people liked her that day. I think people are willing to kind of forgive the race. It sounds like. To me though, she flattened pretty badly. I mean, she had the lead in the stretch, and South Lawn went clear and went clear pretty pretty easily. Um, I think we kind of talked through that race with the Alley's Look. Alley's Look did kind of the same thing. If you go back through pretty mischievous form before that, I mean, she's really kind of just beating up on those same horses. Hoosier Filly has proven that she's not actually that great of a horse. Before that, it's just the Alley's Look again. So I don't see why you wouldn't judge the Oaks at face value. And if Pretty Mischievous is getting bet, then I don't know if I necessarily need her. I think I'd stick with South Lawn.
Yeah, I think Southbound's the only horse out of that race that I want. Um, we got a couple of also eligibles. I mean, any of these interest you if they draw in?
Yeah, I would be. I mean, I think if Julia Shining gets in, she would. That morning line is probably double what it should be. I think she'd get bet pretty strongly, and I think she probably should. You could argue I think she was best in the Ashland. She was 3 wide, then 4 wide. I think she bumped Punch Bowl a couple of times, and she ended up just missing by less than a length. I think she's one that would really like the extra 16th. Now, I think Tax is a little interesting too. If you watch the fantasy, she's usually more of a front runner, but she ended up actually kind of sitting mid pack in that race, and then she made a really kind of nice close. Wet Paint was closing faster, obviously, but it was interesting kind of tactics change, I thought, and I think she's pretty talented. So if I'm spreading, that's another horse I'd consider, but I'd have to look more closely at who scratched and what I think that did to the pace scenario.
I noticed you didn't mention Hoosier Philly.
I did not. Um, it's funny that she's 30 to 1 on the morning line. What was she in the futures pool at one point? Like
Wasn't she the
two
favorite
to
at some
one by
point?
herself or so? Yeah, it was
Yeah.
something absurd. I wish she would get in. Maybe people would still bet her. She gets bet every time. I mean, look at those odds: 1.2, 0.4, 0.48. It's crazy.
Yeah. This is yeah. I don't know. So I guess obviously we talked through this. It's a bit of a spread race. I'm probably mostly on the 11 and 12 here. Where are you kind of sitting?
I think right now I am probably on the A line. I would be South Lawn, Botanical, and Darth Vader.
Okay. Yeah, fair
And
enough.
then
And
I'll
then
have to
like
look at
half
if
the
I.
field as bees.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'll have to look at what bees I can afford after I get through the rest of the sequence.
Yeah.
But those are the three I think I really want one on top. I think they're gonna be good value.
Awesome. And before I let you go, 30 seconds, Derby. What do you think?
So I'm really kind of enamored with Mage. I thought that move he made on the turn in the Florida Derby was it showed a ton of talent. You don't see horses do that when they break from last, and he's run some kind of inefficient baseline. So, from a long shot perspective, I really want to bet Mage. Um, and then I think my kind of strongest opinion is actually I'm fading Tappet Trice. I think that horse is getting a lot of buzz, and I don't see any
Mm-hmm.
way that he's going to work out a good trip. He breaks, like a lead weight at the gate. I think he's going to be last early, probably steadied a few times, has to check, has to go 10 wide. If he can win doing that, then I'll take my L.
I just think it's amazing that a horse that won the Tampa Bay Derby and the was it the Bluegrass is like the steam horse, like the two of the weakest props. Like you might as well be betting Lord Miles, the winner of the Wood. Like really, like one, two of some of the weaker preps historically, right? I mean, who knows what happens this year, but yeah, Tapitrice is not for me either. So I'm definitely with you there. Um, Stu, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for doing this with me. I you know, I appreciate when you gave me a ton of feedback when we first started doing this stuff, and continue to give us feedback. So thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Happy to do it.
All right.